Today's meeting is all about project management, and our presenter is Mr. Reynold Patrick. I'm just going to give you a little bit of background information. A past student of Presentation College, Chaguanas, Mr. Patrick is a qualified civil engineer from the British Institute of Engineering Technology in the UK. His skills and expertise are in procurement, construction management, project control, leadership, project planning, and project management. He is a project management advisor and professional with significant and progressive experience and expertise in infrastructure and capital projects, with emphasis on business, conceptual, and strategic systems, formulation and development, project planning and administration, project evaluation, vendor review, claims negotiation, implementation coordination, performance analysis, leadership and governance of state-sponsored institutional, commercial, and industrial projects. He is also a former project management officer with the Ministry of Community, Safety and Correctional Services in Toronto, Canada, where he was responsible for developing strategic project methodology, providing project management expertise to develop a project management and tracking program for facility management coordinators and accommodation staff for over 150 capital repair and rehabilitation construction projects. He was also the chief project advisor for our own HDC, Housing Development Corporation, where he conducted pre-qualification exercise for selecting construction management providers and prepared the delivery program and budget for the 2010-11 housing program, as well as providing expert technical and contract analysis and advice to the managing director and in-house professionals. He also held the position of Divisional Manager Project Management at the HDC from 2008 to 2009, where he prepared and communicated the delivery program and strategy for complex projects for the construction of 8,000 new housing units. He is a graduate of the University of Toronto in Ontario, Canada, in Foundations of Business Analysis, where he attained a grade A, as well as George Brown College, Toronto, Ontario. In the area of construction and trades, he holds specialized industry certification in project planning and scheduling, construction and project management. He's also a graduate of Henley Management College in the UK, School of Accounting and Management, with a diploma in business administration, project management, where he placed first in the Part 2 examination of the Caribbean region. He also holds an MBA from Henley in project management, where he also placed first in Part 3 examination of Caribbean region. He is a member of the Project Management Institute, Southern Ontario chapter, as well as the International Project Management Association and ISO 21500 in project management. He is currently the project manager at Reynold Patrick. I could go on and on, but without further ado, I think if I go on further, you'll think I'm doing the presentation. So without further ado, let me give you Mr. Reynold Patrick.
Thank you very much. I never heard it put quite that way. I think I never listened to anybody else talk about me like that. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Notwithstanding all that was just said, I always admit that I don't know everything, and I know sometimes very little about most things. I am a student of project management, just like most people, and I'd like to know more. So what I was asked to come to your breakfast discussion this morning, I was concerned because my slant has always been project management. But project management doesn't happen by itself. It really happens in a business environment. So I wanted to look at the business environment, and I wanted to look at what ISACA, what you all do, and see what commonalities there were. And as I analyzed what you do, I realized that there was some critical sort of commonalities, systems, audit and control. And then I looked further assurance security than emphasis on governance. So what I then did was put together some slides, the short slides really, there are only 20 of them. As we walk through the slides, we'll look at some of the linkages and then look at some of the issues which I have raised at a national level with respect to what project management does, but also what organizations like you do with respect to bringing projects forward and delivering goods and services to the population. The summary of contents, basically key characteristics of what you do, a small definition of governance, governance in project management, what good governance characteristics could look like, key commonalities between project management and what you do, benefits to the end users, and then there are a series of performance statistics which I've looked at from research both here in Trinidad and from the Canadian perspective. Right. So this is where part of my introduction led me, and you all are steeped in treating with systems, audits, and controls, and secondly, assurance and security with an emphasis on governance. I was just trying to develop a sort of definition for governance, and after reading a number of works, the system of checks and balances designed to ensure corporate managers are just as vigilant on behalf of long-term shareholder value as they would be if it were their own money at risk. Now, I remember in Toronto, I was speaking with a matter, and the assistant deputy minister used to be an accountant before, and he was saying to me he spends as much time analyzing an expenditure that is in the dollar value, single dollar value, as he would if it were $1 million. And the reason why he said that is so is because the systems required it. And generally, people would not spend as much time on a small item as they would spend on a big item because they would not treat it in a systematic or systemic way. The second, governance relates to decisions which define expectations, grants power, and verifies performance. And we do that all the time. We set limits on who can do what value of expenditure they are responsible for, and that goes back to our risk assessment is trying to determine what level of exposure each person can be responsible for, and overall what level of exposure of risk the organization has or can manage. But ultimately, application of good governance serves to realize organization goals and societal values. And I always want to focus on the societal values, because no matter how good governance can be, if the values are not passed on to the society, benefits are passed on to the shareholders, the stakeholders, then those governance processes don't deliver, and delivery can't happen unless the society benefits. So I always take project management back to societal goals, and I always take all systems where there are audits, controls, measures back to societal goals. Now, governance in project management, as governance in what you do, all attempt to achieve these 5 items: accountability, fairness, ethical behavior, transparency, and value for money. So here is where I made the link between what ISACA does and what project management tries to do. All of what you do, all of what professional organizations try to do, really requires them to be accountable to everyone, all of the stakeholders, to be fair, ethical in their behavior, transparent in all their dealings. This worries me because I am seeing all the time every year that Trinidad and Tobago has fallen on the transparency index. And the reason why that worries me from a project perspective is because you may be doing all that you're required to do, for instance, in a bid process. And you believe that you have the best price, the best value to provide, and the best set of circumstances, and you don't win. And you're always second guessing yourself. And it is not so much a matter that you were wrong, just a matter that the process may not have been transparent. So governance then attempts to treat with that. Auditing attempts to treat with that. And if you do not have a transparent system, I really can't see how you will get value for money. I can't add use to it at all. Now, what I wanted to do from here was just list 3 examples, what I thought was good governance, and 3 examples which I thought was not so good governance over the last 4 years, which could be linked to those 5 items which we have identified. I was in Canada in early part of this year, and someone raised an issue that the mayor of Toronto had used official stationery to solicit funds for a little league team, which he coached freely for the last 17 years. And he probably just wrote on the office stationery to whomever, can I have $3,000 or whatever. I don't know what the language was. And last week, before, he was removed from office. He didn't benefit. But the system which was put in place saw that that was not the right thing to do. Again in Toronto, there was a shooting at Eaton Center. And after doing background checks on the individual, they found that he was a teacher at a school for extracurricular events. And they were trying to figure out, well, how could he be and be involved in a shooting? And then realized that the background checks were not complete. So within 2 weeks of that, the law was changed, and anybody to be engaged in the municipal or provincial systems had to have a complete and thorough background check. I remember when I was going to the ministry there, I had to have a background check, and it took about 4 months of the background check to be complete. But they would not move until it was done. And again, that goes back to part of the governance system, part of the audit system. And the last item I would raise here was, again, sometime in September, August, September, a 2-year-old child drowned in a neighbor's pool. The neighbor's property was fenced. But there was a hole in the fence, and the child crawled through, and the child was drowned. And within the week or the following week, the neighbor was detained, taken to court, charged for breach of relevant municipal rights. That's on the one side. On the other side, I just wanted to contrast that with the financial crisis of Wall Street and the complex and long battles to introduce corrective legislation. The matter with respect to PICO HCU now before us, it has been admitted that some professionals hid the facts because it looked like the easier route to take. And then I wanted to just look at the third item, the events subsequent to the off-commission of inquiry into the construction sector in the country. Now the point here is that in the first case, effective governance led to almost immediate action. And resolution of matters to the benefit of the end recipients, end users, stakeholders, and society. And in the latter case, the story is quite the opposite. And the benefits to the end recipients appear to be distant, prolonged, and in some cases we're not sure if everybody benefits from the resolution. Now, my question then was how organizations like the ISACA can assist project management and project delivery. And in attempting to see how organizations like yours can assist project management, I want to admit that we really kind of do the same thing. We have the same skills, same people, same information, same technology, same strategy. And I had a lot of same shared values, but after I wrote it, I had a question in my mind, whether that is so. Because if that is so, then the auditing frameworks should have been complied with, and then the project delivery would be compliant with the auditing framework. But I don't think they both agree. I don't think that project delivery necessarily agrees with the systems which they're supposed to follow. And that is why we do not have as efficient and effective delivery of projects as we could have. Because there's always some work around the system. That might probably be a good thing, but many times it's a bad thing. So how do we then get project management to comply? And go back to the auditing side of things. We generally think about the auditing of the artifacts of the documents prepared and presented. But in a number of cases, we're finding out that we really need to audit from the people side of things. One of the things I always say about project management, if I'm employing a project team, I want everybody to be at least 85% successful, or 85% competent. And everybody asks me why I say that. And the reason why I would always say 85 is because, in general, we would put our base price plus 15% profit on overhead. Well, your base price will have some elements of savings and so on built into it. I'm saying you can lose it, you can lose the 15% and still complete your project. And to achieve an 85% project success, I am saying you at least need an 85% competent people. I don't see that you have people who are 50% competent trying to achieve an 80% delivery. That really cannot happen. And there is a slide at the end which I will show you, where I have gone to a number of organizations in Trinidad. In fact, all of the construction organizations of the state sector, Judicat, HDC, Ministry of, not anybody who had a construction portfolio. And at the end of the day, they recognize that the people side of things were probably about 42% competent. And I don't know how 42% competence to deliver a successful project. So sometimes I think the audit needs to start there. No. Let me just go then to the performance statistic component. I captured some data in 2001 to 2005 from these same state sector companies. And the budgets were generally exceeded by 40%, and the timeline was exceeded by 260%. So some of the projects which are now on the ground, I mean, that would have been a given. That's how the system in Trinidad performs. And I didn't want that to be just in a vacuum. I wanted to test that. And the 2011 report, the chaos report by the Standish Group, it's a report which is prepared principally for IT-based operations. But then there were commonalities between those reports and projects in other sectors as well, whether they're construction or healthcare, and they all bear the same characteristics. And the latest reports suggest that projects 2009 to 2011, because this is a 2-year report, and 2 years into the report, I think 1 year or one period, they skipped, and so they went from 2006 to 2009. But between 2009 and 2011, only 16% of projects implemented globally were successful, on time and on budget. 53% of them were challenged, over budget, deficient scope or features, and 31% of projects were failed. And failed meant they were either cancelled before completion, some of them cancelled before they were started, or impaired, never did it. And that when I first did research on this years ago, I always thought that I've never heard this before, and I'm wondering why it is not part of the normal literature. But what was worrying to me that between 2009 and 2011, the success rate fell 50%. 2011, 2009, it was 32% successful. And this again is the background of a host of organizations providing expert project management tuition, certifications and so on. So we're increasing the number of professionals. And at the same time, we're increasing the success, the project failures. So I can't account for that at this time. It's just to say that those figures don't add up. So we've had a fall in the success rate by 50% and an increase in challenge projects by 24% for the same period. When we look at the failure modes, it can be seen that the application of tools and techniques by project management professionals absolutely poor. And the systems which they operate within, marginal, they're the 52% line. When we hear all these figures, and we hear about it globally, $2.3 trillion worth of capital growth in the United States and so on, you know, we see it far away, we see it distant. And I just wanted to, I could be wrong. If we took the national budget of Trinidad and Tobago, 2012-2013 as $55 billion, and we apply those same characteristics, because the budget is really an amalgamation of projects to be implemented, or money is allocated for that. It means that we will have of that $55 billion, only $8.8 billion worth of successful projects. And the next $46.2 billion worth of projects will be either challenged or failed. So in the failure mode, we would have spent $17 billion of time and effort and energy. People get paid and all sort of thing. And the population at the end of the day gets nothing from that. And that is worrisome. The reason why that is worrisome is because of that challenge and failed delivery, $29.2 billion. Some of that is never going to be achieved within the particular year of promise. And there will be overruns on those. And that $29.2 billion will eventually become 40% add-on before the project is completed. So this is my Trinidad and Tobago statistic. Now, one of the things I wanted to do from that is just not say, well, we've looked at all of the facts and this is what is going to happen. These things can change. And they can change if we really start to look at governance and managing these statistics. These are the statistics from the same report from 1994 to 2011. And we will see that, in fact, from 2006, project success started to decline. But we went from 2009 to 2011, 50%, whereas in 2006 to 2009, we actually declined by 2%. What accounts for that, I don't know. I don't think you all can see this graphic clearly, but in looking at the success factors, I had done, there were about 41 other researchers, and I had done a summation of all of that. And everybody measures cost first, time second, quality third, client satisfaction fourth, team satisfaction 5th, contractor satisfaction 6th, and they will normally cut off at the 80% line, which should really take us to meeting technical specifications. And those are the characteristics of project delivery, whether they're IT, whether they're financial project delivery, whether they're accounting project delivery, whatever project delivery, those would be the characteristics that they will consider in that order. People always tell me about my colors, but when I was in Canada, they like colors. So this was actually at MCSCS. For an organization to perform their system of measurements must treat with a number of matters. To be best in business, teamwork, customer satisfaction, meeting all requirements, achieving best quality, lowest cost, and on-time performance. Items 4 to 7 are taken from the same chaos statistics. There is a report, if you just go on the browser and type Standish Group chaos statistics, it will come and explain the background to their measurements. So these items here, 4, 5, 6, 7, come from that report. Am I running out of time? So when I put those in, the average of that is 61%. So that figure is the figure that the best in business says that they are achieving based on the Standish report. There are a number of other reports that were considered, about 5 other reports, and they have similar outcomes. And what I did was created this and simply measured where the organization was against where industry best was. So the yellow would be, okay, they're above the internal benchmark, but below the external benchmark. Green is fine, and red is bad. And then the comment column says what should be measured in terms of achieving best in business. And one of the things that came out of this was meeting with the staff, continuous training and education. You can't move from one point to the next without continuous training, apprenticeships, internships, and that sort of thing. That must happen. Because there is no way to grow the people into understanding what you want to achieve and having them do it whilst they are being supervised doing it. I don't think people apprentice much in Trinidad again. I don't know why, but they don't. One of the other graphics I had done was to show all of the issues which were involved in creating good project performance and where you also need to place emphasis. And that as well comes as part of the auditing and quality control, quality management process. And what the recommendation was, that you need to look at your year-on-year targets, your year-on-year performance. To achieve cost reduction, based on all the statistics, you need to reduce your year-on-year cost by 11%. You also need to increase your scope and quality achievement, increase your project completion, and improve client satisfaction. And all of those have methods which you have to apply, and those go back to some of your auditing systems, go back to some of your analysis systems, goes back to some of your training, development, that is what organizations like yours do. The question really is how to get other organizations to do the same thing. And I was trying to figure out how could an organization like yours, for instance, impact our local PMI chapter or similar organizations to do this. Now, that really brings us to the last